Um, I haven't heard much about giving vaccines to pregnant women. Anyway, I want to know if that's true. That sounds pretty disturbing. Virus is spreading in Southeast Asia, India. What do I think about that? I think that Americans think we're the most important people in the world. But here's something that's going to come around to bite our ass because the virus is just going to come back from India and Africa and South America as new, changed, more virulent. And by not helping the rest of the world, it's going to come back, bite us. People are going to are dieting, and dieting is up after the pandemic. Well, maybe they're like me, they ate too much during the pandemic, being it alone. Uh, I'm doing the fasting diet, which I've talked about before. Here's some more serious news. Israel hits Gaza with airstrikes as Hamas increases rocket fire. What's going on? Well, the Palestinians, Muslims, are doing a march to the Aqsa Mosque, but that's in East Jerusalem. Guess who controls that? The Israelis. So what did Israelis do to piss off the uh, Palestinians? First, they put a fence around the meeting area where they gather down the street from the mosque and have their celebrations. Um, if you're a Palestinian, I see that could piss you off. You're fenced out of the area that you normally go for your religious celebration. They also stopped a march that the Palestinians were going to have that's kind of traditional this time of the year. And the Israelis are evicting 11 families from their homes. Under international law, this is not okay. But under Israeli law, they say we own the East Jerusalem. Our records show that it's ours. We've sold it to other members of our country, and they have the right to come and take possession. What rights do the Palestinians have? None. But Palestinians don't have any rights anyway. And also, the Israelis have killed a few, they regularly kill. It's kind of like our police regularly kill black people, black men in particular. Um, the Israelis randomly kill uh, not only men, but also children. There's some cases right now. Did the Israelis get in trouble for that? Usually not. So that's kind of why the Palestinians are pissed off. So Hamas, which is on another part of the Palestinian territory, they sent rockets over at Israel. Well, they are really crappy rocket builders. Only one of the rockets that I forgot, they did a dozen rockets or something. Only one of them, came toward Israel, and Israel's, swatted it down with a weapon system. Forgot what it's called. That's provided by the United States, and then it's a missile interceptor system, the Patriot, because that's American values right there. So then the Israelis bombed the crap out of Palestinian territories where Hamas is. So Israel has these big, fighter jets, and they have weapons and Palestinians have rockets that don't work, and they have rocks. And the Israeli police have bullets. Sometimes they use plastic bullets, sometimes they use real bullets. This Palestinians essentially have no rights, and America supports that. It's remember what happened in South Africa, apartheid. It's apartheid, but it's somebody that's our friend, so we don't have enough guts as Americans to stand on the side um, of people that are being abused. I got some really great articles on. There's a whole bunch of laws in Israel that are different levels of citizenship, and you have the Israeli at the top with full citizenship, and then you have some Palestinians that are residents and have been for a long time inside of Israel that have almost, but they're not irrevocable rights. And then you have something like 7 levels where, you know, as you go down the pecking order, depending on what part of territory you live in, it's enshrined in law. You have at the bottom have nothing, which includes like the right to move and from one territory to another, the right to own property, all kind of basic human rights that, and it's enshrined in our law, and yet somehow America doesn't see that as fundamental. The Jewish lobby is obviously very strong. So that's what I think of what's happening in Palestine. There's a little bit of fear there. The whole thing will blow up. Well, no joke. What else is happening? There's more shootings in America. Colorado's some people, 10 people got shot, and there's some in New York City. There's a pipeline that got hijacked by ransomware by a company probably that exists, Dark something, that lives in works out of Russia. They everything's controlled by the internet, including, you know, there's probably 1,000 pumps on a big pipeline like that, all the sublines and the pumps, and there's tank levels and everything, and I'm sure it's highly automated. And if you mess up the uh, computer system, you don't know which tanks are full or empty, and you don't know if you're overflowing tanks. I mean, it could be a real disaster. So they shut the pipeline down. Takes moves half the energy along the East Coast, which is, you know, sounds pretty damn serious to me. And of course, they'll pay the ransomware. They actually have insurance companies now that pay the ransomware, which means that we've just created with this insurance a hell of a good business for people that are hackers. There's no national policy on this. Biden's created a task force, but it's a fundamental um, you know, do you negotiate with criminals? And we've said, yes, we're going to create a whole damn business. We're going to pay insurance companies who will then pay the rent, the hackers. They probably have standardized rates and stuff and how much they pay on a thing. So then the companies will have to pay the difference. We've created a business that favors hackers. That's my angle on the story. Okay, let's move on to China. They just did a new census. Their population is shrinking. They have a fertility rate of 1.3. It takes a fertility rate of 2.1. Each couple has to have 2.1 kids to have the population be stable. And the 0.1 has something to do with, you know, deaths before you reach uh, birthing age. Only 12 million babies were born last year in China. And if you consider they have 1.4 billion people, there's not many kids. This creates a huge problem for China. Um, they've kind of built their success on having low cost labor available for the rest of the world, and they sell that labor um, to get money to grow their country, grow, buy their battleships, build their high speed trains. It's not that they're not using the money well. A lot of countries have this problem, but China's made it worse because they had in the 1980s, they had you can only have one kid rule. That also somehow resulted in a whole lot more men being born than women, which probably means there was a lot of female, women, girl babies killed. Now they have a huge surplus. It's like 60-40 or something like that, men to women. So that causes a lot of unrest if you're a man looking for a woman and you don't have a shot in hell. If you're not, middle class in China, um, who's, you know, got some money, if you're in the, you know, bottom 40% of the country, bottom 40% of the economy, your odds are not real good at getting a woman. Women, pretty good situation. You can marry up. So that also means that um, people are getting old. Here's a weird thing: they make people retire at 60. It's mandated. It's not like a choice. Men retire at 60, women at 50. Which, since women live longer, that's kind of like stupid policy from my point of view. But it's male chauvinist, white male, Chinese white male. Same old stuff we got here. So, what's China going to do about that? They've changed, and they got all sorts of special rules set up trying to, you can have up to 2 kids. Well, it's time for them to just like open it up free for all. They also don't allow immigration into their country, so they don't have the chance like we kind of do sometimes of growing our population and getting young workers by immigration. So China, in being wise and trying to control everything, has kind of had unintended consequences. And the older I get, the more I think we know less than we think we do. And we think we know where things are going, but we're not so smart. What it looks right like now, though, is you educate women and give them birth control, and they choose to have less kids. And there's a whole lot of economies around the world that are facing some really tough times and big changes. Because we also have an economic model as, get big or go home, um, grow your business. And when you have a growing economy and growing amount of people, um, that kind of gives you room to breathe. And there's always new people to market to and new people coming up, and that steady growth kind of gives, um, you don't have to grow your business. You can feed on the new people coming up. Feed on me, that's a bad word. um, you can depend on new customers. in a world where your number of customers are shrinking, it means it's more cutthroat that you got to take your business away from someone else. And I'd like to be, say, we do this based on, uh, having a better product, but often it's based on power and position and who you know. Um, if more corrupt your society is, the worse that problem is. And China is probably pretty high up there on the corruption scale and who you know and central planning. So China's got some problem there, and it's going to start having an immediate effect, and it's probably going to um, reduce their ability to compete with the United States. So keep that on the back burner. Uh, they're starting to have mass shootings in Russia. There's a lot of unruly passengers these days on airlines, and so federal fines are increasing. We don't want to figure out why, do we? Well, there's a lot of other little stuff, but I think that's the important stuff going on today. If you like my take on the news, it's obviously very biased. I'm not making any attempt here to be um, objective. I have biases and opinions, and if you tune in, you're going to hear them. My opinions are not always pro-Democrat, and they're not always anti-Republican. I tend, I call myself an independent. I tend to line up with Democratic values more than Republican, but not all the time. I definitely don't line up with the Trump party. Uh, oh, there's the one other piece of news. Cheney, the number three person, um, is she in the? I think she's in the House, and she's the number three person in uh, Republican Party. There's a vote tomorrow to see if she keeps her job. We'll cover that tomorrow. My guess is she doesn't. Trump's still got a stranglehold, and there's only a very small handful of Republicans that got the balls to stand on their own feet. Because getting elected is more important than anything else to most Congress people, and that's Republican or Democrat. Values are kind of second most important. You must get reelected, and at the end of the day, you'll do whatever's necessary for most people. I mean, there's exceptions. There's the Bernings of the world and the Romneys of the world that seem to, stand on their own feet and listen to their own voice and the voice of their people. Anyway, this is the Ancient Texan with his take on the daily news. Hope you guys all have a good day. Thanks for the few of you that are out there listening. And I will try to turn my recording off. Have a good one.